we getting the X-Men?
I cannot tell you that.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. My name is Ryan Airy, and we just got several new Marvel trailers and reveals at D23 this year. But I thought it was interesting that there were many Marvel projects that were not announced or even mentioned. In fact, there are some Marvel projects that have been completely filmed that have not even been officially announced by the House of Ideas. So we want to talk about all of those and a Spider-Man 4 that may finally bring Venom into the MCU. And a little later, I'm going to tell you why I think that is a really bad idea. So in this video, we're going to look beyond what Disney announced at D23 and talk about every secret Marvel project and ask if some of these projects like Blade and Armor Wars are actually canceled. Now a little bit later I'm going to be joined by two of the best, our very own Colton Ogburn and Marvel superfan Cameron Kasky, to explain what the heck is going on here. But first, let me tell you what is actually going on here at Marvel. In the past, going all the way back to 2014, Marvel has had these big events where they announced several projects at once. They announced all of Phase 3 at a big event, and they announced the beginning of the multiverse saga in Phase 4 at SDCC in 2019. But because of how the media landscape works today, it seems like there is always another big event every few months. For instance, we just had San Diego Comic-Con, then we got D23 a couple weeks later, and pretty soon it'll be New York Comic-Con, then CCXP, etc. So Disney for the past couple years has just kept announcing different projects at every single one of these events, and I think that overwhelmed fans. You remember, even a couple years ago, we would get these massive drops where we would get trailers for Secret Invasion and announcements for Echo and Agatha and Daredevil, and it just seemed like there was a lot to keep track of. This was because under former Disney CEO Bob Paycheck, the studios were pressured to release as much content as possible. But now, with Bob Iger back in control of Disney, he has announced that they are scaling back and they're focusing on quality over quantity. So now we're seeing that reflected in their announcements and marketing. Instead of announcing 12 shows and movies at the same time, D23 focused on what's coming out in the immediate future. And instead of releasing several trailers to the public on the same day, they only gave us a trailer for the next project, Agatha, and I think that's really smart on Marvel's part. It makes people excited for the next thing instead of not knowing what to get excited about. And not releasing a trailer for Daredevil to the public meant that, we could all stay focused on looking forward to Agatha. However, there are still numerous Marvel projects that have either been filmed, are in development, or are about to wither on the announcement vine. Now, some of these projects I am very excited about. For instance, D23's Marvel Animation panel announced two really big projects coming up soon. There is the MA-rated Marvel Zombie show and the show Eyes of Wakanda. And this is exactly what I want to see from these Marvel animated shows. They should be filling in the gaps between the movies. For instance, I would also love to see a show about the team of Avengers that we saw at the beginning of Captain America Civil War. This kind of thing would be essential viewing that you wouldn't watch for the sake of being a completionist, but it would be a really fun way to continue to tell the untold stories from the MCU's Infinity Saga. I'm just so excited for Marvel to be back, you guys. New movies and shows, all the new animated shows coming out this year. For me, this goes back to my childhood, Saturday mornings, watching Spider-Man or X-Men with a big bowl of cereal. It's like my core memories, and I can't believe I get to talk about all this as an adult.
Well, then you should start eating like an adult and put away that junk food cereal.
Oh, this isn't junk food cereal. This is Magic Spoon, the sponsor of this video. Magic Spoon tastes like all the cereals from my childhood, but it has no gluten, no soy, and there are 0 grams of sugar. Plus, it has 13 to 14 grams of protein, 4 to 5 grams of net carbs per serving. But most importantly, guys, it just tastes so darn good. Magic Spoon is also high protein, keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, wheat-free, and naturally flavored. These cereals taste like the cereals from my childhood, but they are made with grown-up ingredients, nothing artificial. And now they've introduced new cereal breakfast treats: double chocolate, blueberry muffin, marshmallow, and chocolatey peanut butter. Each bar has 11 to 12 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar, and 1 to 2 grams of net carbs. On super busy Easter egg days, I eat these all the time because they're a great way for me to put off lunch for just a little bit longer and instead have a tasty treat. But most importantly, guys, I love Magic Spoon because it's just fun. We may be grown-ups, but be the grown-up you always wanted to be when you were a kid. Eat cereal and watch cartoons. This is perfect for reluctant adults like us. So click our link below to get some Magic Spoon cereal today. You can build your very own variety box and use my code ScreenCrush for $5 off. You can choose from the best-selling cocoa, fruity, frosted peanut butter, and maple waffle flavors, plus other awesome flavors like honey nut, blueberry muffin, birthday cake, and cinnamon roll. You can also add the cookies and cream and cocoa peanut butter cereal bars to your variety box. And Magic Spoon, guys, is so confident in their product, it is is backed with a 100% happiness guarantee online. So if you don't like it for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. So click the link below or scan this QR code and use the code ScreenCrush to get $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/ScreenCrush to get $5 off your purchase today. Also, for our Canadian and British fans, Magic Spoon also ships to Canada and the UK. Now, back to what I was saying. Now, before we get into all of these projects individually, and before I bring on Colton and Cameron, let's look at this Marvel release calendar. Brave New World and Thunderbolts are coming out early next year, and they are both the final films of Phase 5. The Fantastic Four is the first film of Phase 6, and it comes out July of next year. Now, Blade is technically still listed to come out next year, but let's face it, guys, it's probably not going to happen. Maybe if it's very low visual effects and it's very grounded and dirty, it could happen, but right now it's unlikely. However, the only other confirmed movies are Avengers Doomsday in May 2026 and Avengers Secret Wars in May 2027. Now, a very reliable leaker named Daniel RPK has said that all of the films that take place between Doomsday and Secret Wars will actually take place on Battleworld.
What's Battleworld?
So we've talked about Battleworld a lot on the channel before. Basically, in both versions of Secret Wars, Marvel characters are all forced onto a single planet called Battleworld. In the original Secret Wars, this pitted the heroes against the villains, and in the 2015 version, it pitted them against other variants of themselves who worked for Dr. Doom. Battleworld is essentially like the Void that we saw in Deadpool. In fact, it's likely that the Void will end up being the MCU's Battleworld. So, assuming this information is correct, it means that we just have 2 unannounced Marvel movies that take place in the normal universe, or 3 if you count Blade. The other 2 films in July and November would be Battleworld films. But there's another wrinkle added to this. Marvel took that July film off their release calendar. Now, I think this means that this film is likely Spider-Man 4. Marvel would have removed it from their release calendar because technically it's a Sony film. Now, this could mean that Spider-Man 4 actually takes place on Battleworld. This would reunite Tom Holland with his variants from No Way Home, and comic book readers know Spider-Man plus Battleworld equals one of the all-time greatest Spider-Man villains. But I'm going to talk to Colton and Cameron about that in just a bit. First, let's run through all of these potentially secret films and shows that are not listed on the official lineup, and we're going to determine which of these films and shows we think take place on Battleworld, and then we're going to try to work out what these mysterious untitled films are. So first off, I want to talk about Armor Wars, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about Armor Wars because we did already cover it in our canceled projects video a few weeks ago. So Armor Wars was first announced as part of that deluge of Disney content dump it was going to be a Disney Plus series. Now, this was very much just Marvel throwing everything against the wall under corporate mandate to produce as much content as possible. Since then, it's been revealed that Armor Wars has transitioned from being a show to being a movie, but you'll notice it's not been mentioned in a really long time. And this is too bad because I think Armor Wars is one of the few slam dunk franchises Marvel has right now. People love Rhodey. They love Don Cheadle, and they have so much lore to draw from the comics. Armor Wars was apparently going to deal with Tony Stark's worst nightmare, that his tech is now in the hands of his worst enemies. And so his best friend Rhodey must carry on his legacy and find a way to get the genie back in the bottle. However, the MCU's not been very kind to Rhodey in this phase. Secret Invasion, it was revealed that he was a Skrull, but we don't know for how long. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if Armor Wars was one of these franchises that quietly gets kind of swept under the rug and it's never mentioned again. And that's too bad because this is one that I really wanted to see. So let's talk about a Disney Plus show that we know is going to be released, Wonderman. Wonderman has the potential to be one of the most fun Marvel projects. It's about an actor who also happens to be a superhero, and in the comics was a former villain who was trying to make amends for his past life. Aquaman Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is Wonder Man, and Ben Kingsley's Trevor Slattery is also on board.
Trevor Slattery, the actor.
It also has an incredible cast, including Lauren Glazer, Ed Harris, and Josh Gad, plus Demetrius Gross as the series villain Eric Williams, aka the Grim Reaper. So, I got 2 of my besties here. We got Cameron Kasky and Colton Ogburn, who's trapped eternally in the television and doesn't know it, so please don't tell him. Cameron, what the hell is the holdup in releasing Wonder Man, or even officially announcing Wonder Man?
It's very strange because it's a very cool character whose powers are very made to be on the big screen. And he's got a great history with the Avengers. He's kind of been all over the place with the team. And Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, the talent at the center of it, you might remember him from the Watchmen series, where he was Dr. Manhattan, or the Aquaman movies, where he was Black Manta, and giving it his all and clearly having a fun time. He's Wonder Man, and he is an incredible actor. One of the best in his generation. So you've got a fun character, title for the show that screams this is about a superhero and an undeniable talent at the center. I remember, if you recall, a year or so ago there was a rumor that Bob Odenkirk was attached, and that wasn't true, which was super disappointing to me as a
Right.
Better Call Saul
Well,
fanatic.
but Ed Harris and Josh Gad are. So that's
Josh
pretty great.
Gad?
Josh Gad.
He is a very kind man. He's a very nice person.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard.
And he's directing a Chris Farley movie with Paul Walter Hauser, who's in Fantastic Four. Anyway,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
right.
really know why it's held up. I imagine it just found itself in between a rock and a hard place with the strikes. That's got to be it. But I'm really excited about that series, and I hope he makes it into other Marvel projects. Obviously, I hope things like Doomsday and Secret Wars focus on the characters that we've been on these years-long journeys with. But Wonderman is really cool. You know him better than I because you're more familiar with the era of the Avengers where he was prominent, and that's a tremendous actor right there. So it seems like a recipe for success.
Yeah, it's going to be a parody of Hollywood if they do it right. Here's the Wonder Man statue that actually Colton got me. Thank you, Colton. Put him over here. That's 70s and 80s Wonder Man. Yeah, I'm excited about it. You know, there was a really sad thing where a production member died on the crew, so it also has kind of that hanging over it. I don't think that's a reason to delay it. I think maybe they're just waiting for good CGI. I think that Secret Invasion was, you know, a show so nice they filmed it twice and then they rushed the CGI. And Colton, you saw what we got there. Have you heard anything about Wonder Man or what we can expect, or where you're, you know, why do you think Marvel's not even announcing it yet?
My fear is that it sucks. This show was made during an era of Marvel that was quite different. I didn't even realize until recently that the show was apparently in the can. I didn't realize they were done. I'm very concerned that with the show being made before Marvel's reset, like kind of their realization that things aren't going so well, and Kevin Feige's realization that he probably needs to be more involved, more hands-on, I'm worried that, and I agree with Cameron on everything he said about Wonder Man. Terrific character, and I would think that making a show about him would be very easy. I don't know how you screw that up, but I'm concerned that maybe they did. Maybe this is one of those shows that needs to go through some significant, re-editing and stuff like that to make it, be able to be stomached. I hope that's not the case. I hope that maybe they're just shuffling it around and the planning to release it at another time. But it is concerning that they have not really talked about it at all. I mean, they talked about Ironheart, which was in a similar situation, it being complete, and then we didn't hear about it for a while. So I'm hoping that it's just the case that they don't want to overdo it, don't want to reveal too much right now, and that they're holding it. But I am a little concerned that maybe it's just not that good.
It could be that. It really could. And if it is, hopefully it's things that can be fixed. I mean, we've seen that extensive reshoots like with Secret Invasion don't help the show, and reordering or re-editing the show doesn't help much, like we saw in She-Hulk and with Echo. In fact, it can sometimes just dilute the original creator's vision. Now, I do want to go through all of these shows, right? And I want to fill in those missing movie dates with some of that. We're going to talk about every project that's been talked about or confirmed. Obviously, some of these might be TV shows, so we'll talk about that. And I really want to know what these two movies are that take place on Battleworld. Now, we've already mentioned Spider-Man probably is. We can talk about the possibilities for that toward the end of the video, but I want to go through some of these individually, talk about where they are, and which ones we think are going to be set between Doomsday and Secret Wars. As you guys know, in the comics, there was a massive Secret Wars crossover. There were different series that showed Old Man Logan on Battleworld, and they had a lot of different fun playing with these variants. So I'm curious to hear what you think, how you think some of these will fit in. So the first one I want to talk about, there's not much to say about it right now, is Vision Quest. So there were rumors that WandaVision writer Jack Schaefer started this. It didn't work out. It was a false start. This, of course, is going to follow the further adventures of White Vision from the end of WandaVision. Now, White Vision, everybody was saying, well, wait, why didn't he show up in Multiverse of Madness? If he remembers his Vision, it's been very confusing. There's a lot of precedence in the comics for this. Vision has been destroyed. He's had his mind wiped. He's come back. He's come back as a teenager. The one truly encouraging thing about this show is that they now have, I think, one of the greatest sci-fi showrunners drawing breath right now. That's Terry Matalas. I know neither of you are big Star Trek fans, but what he did for Picard Season 3 was what we wanted Rise of Skywalker to be. He brought Star Trek home for the fans. He's also old school comic book nerd, big Back to the Future fan. And he's told me that that's just in development. They don't have like an arc. They don't they're at the beginning stages of this. So that's very promising. Where are you guys on the White Vision show, and where are you hoping it kind of leads forward? Like, why even address this if it's not going to lead into the next thing? Cameron, what do you think?
I don't care. I think Paul Bettany is a beautiful actor, and what he did with the Vision, turning this robot into somebody so human, is undeniable. So, at the very worst, the White Vision show, a journey of self-actualization for a character that not only is a robot, he is a robot of a robot, can be very compelling, but I don't care. I think he will probably factor into some Young Avengers.
I'm the opposite. I very much care, but I'm surprised to hear you say that. Sorry. You think he'll factor into what?
Some Young Avengers stuff that we'll talk about later in the video, because he does have this parental relationship with Billy Kaplan, and
true.
And again, the actor's great. It's a cool character, but I don't really need to see him in Doomsday or Secret Wars. And part of that for me is because I am so confused about what they've been trying to do with Wanda. How WandaVision ended in this sort of spiritually redemptive arc for her. And then suddenly she's just this Cersei Lannister maniacal villain in Multiverse of Madness. So I kind of hope Wanda stays dead, because we got so much from Elizabeth Olsen. She gave us such a great performance and so much emotion that I don't need to see us retread that. If I were to see White Vision again, I'd rather see him team up with Wonderman, Hawkeye, and some others on the West Coast Avengers and do a quirky comedy series about the Avengers with some of those funnier personalities.
Yeah, I would love a West Coast Avengers show. Bring Tigra in, super horny Tiger Cat Lady. That'd be fun too.
And White Vision can very much be the straight man to the funnier characters, because he's literally a robot.
It's one of those no-brainer Avengers things, and we are going to talk about Young Avengers in just a second. First, Colton, what do you think about White Vision, Vision Quest series?
I'm not super interested in a Vision Quest series. I love the character of Vision. I think White Vision looks a little creepy. I know he's in the comics. He looks dope in the comics, but I kind of hope that if we see him again, he gets a paint job pretty soon, and maybe goes to like a very vibrant type Vision color. They always had him kind of like muted in the MCU, so I'd like to see that. As far as the character overall, yeah, Paul Bettany is brilliant as Vision. I loved how they transitioned Jarvis over to Vision, and I want to see more of the character, of course. I'm really not interested in a Vision solo series. I personally would be more interested, like Cameron kind of teased, in seeing a new Avengers, or Young Avengers, excuse me, type series, not a movie, a series. Movie'd work too, but I prefer a series, of him like recruiting the different new Young Avengers, all of which that I believe, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, would also be like TV characters, like Miss Marvel, the new Hawkeye, like all of these new characters. I'd love to see Young Avengers kind of be a culmination movie of the Disney Plus side of things in the MCU. And I think it'd be cool to have an original Avenger like Vision following his protocol of protecting the world and like reassembling a team of Avengers. I think it writes itself. I think that'd be really neat. I want to see more Vision, but I'm not sure that I'm interested in a Vision Quest as much as I would be as seeing Vision in like a Young Avengers type thing.
So let's talk about Young Avengers. Here's what we know about Young Avengers so far. Many characters from the Young Avengers comics, the original lineup, have been either set up or have appeared in the MCU in some manner or another. Patriot was in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like you said, we have Kate Bishop, et cetera, et cetera. In the comics, it's exactly what you just said. Vision was dead, but his protocol existed, just like you just said it. Vision is created from Jarvis, who had this protect the world protocol. So all the pieces do line up, and I think that's why we're getting this series. However, the only other confirmation we have of Young Avengers is at a press conference, I think for Hawkeye, they asked Haley Steinfeld, hey, is Young Avengers happening? And she looked at Kevin Feige like, can I say something? And Feige went like that. So they're still keeping it a secret. But we know they were thinking about Young Avengers because we have the tease at the end of the Marvels where Kamala Khan shows up and says, Kate Bishop. Now that tease originally was going to happen, rumor has it, at the end of Quantum Mania with Cassie Lang finding the Young Avengers, whatever, listed on the computer instead of saving Scott. And it would have been a better ending, let's face it. Like, they should have stayed trapped in the quantum realm. But I get the reason they changed it was because they didn't want to end 2 straight movies with people trapped in the quantum realm, whatever. So it is out there. My big question regarding Young Avengers, my first question is, I guess, do people still want the Young Avengers, or did the Marvels sour people on this? Did Marvel overpopulation sour people on this?
I don't think that the general audience or Marvel knows what it wants right now. I think they are in a scenario right now where they are rethinking everything and what the multiverse saga is supposed to be. I think that, nothing is, off the table. I think there's a lot of reshuffling going on. I would be interested in seeing it, but as I'll say, as we cover these next few projects that we're going to be discussing, there are some things that I just, and I hate to say it, I just don't care about. I don't want them to fall into the trap of doing too many things that just aren't that great or are underdeveloped. I'd rather see them focus their attention and their money on doing fewer great things. So, but yes, I think a Young Avengers is something that should be one of those things. The MCU is all about culmination. So I'd love to see, I was saying, a culmination thing of their Disney Plus shows. Give those shows some meaning, interconnect it to the...
Well, let me take that point and then throw it over to Cameron with this question. We have these 2 mysterious movie spots that we think are going to take place during Battleworld. One of them is probably Spider-Man, which we'll talk about in a second. Then we have this empty slot. That empty slot, and let's just spitball here, that empty slot could also belong to a Young Avengers movie. The Vision Quest show could take place on Battleworld. It could be the Vision going through different realities or finding different people, the Avengers who survived the 616 and this mashup to the Void, and bringing together America Chavez or people like that. Like, we could see the Young Avengers brought into the MCU in a way where, like, the old Avengers are gone. These guys need to help bring them back, maybe following a defeat of the Avengers in Doomsday. Cam, what do you think about that? Would that kind of get you a little bit more jazzed if it's like closer tied to the culmination of the multiverse saga?
Let me tell you, Ryan, you struck gold with Colton and me, because I love that guy, but we are never on the same page, and it's a beautiful thing. I'm so excited for Young Avengers. I think that's going to be sick. The Young Avengers comics are awesome. There have been 2 main series. They've both been awesome. I'm disappointed that Miss Marvel is at the center of it, not because I don't think she's really fun and compelling. I really like her, but because she's not on those teams in the comics. She's on the Champions, which is like a different Young Avengers. And the Young Avengers stories that exist are already really good, and I don't really want to change them by putting another character at the center. We're going to meet Joe Locke's Wiccan in the Agatha show. I don't even remember what they call it now. They changed the title 50 times. But we're going to meet Wiccan, and Joe Locke's a phenomenal actor and also very good on Broadway. So I'm excited about that. I really liked Patriot on Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I thought he was a highlight. I hope they introduce Hulkling and they don't replace Hulkling with that random weird Hulk son who just randomly showed up.
They are 100% going to replace him with that random weird Hulk son. Who
is that? Do you really think so?
Why else would you bring Scar into it? But I will say this, if they do away with Billy and Teddy's relationship, they're losing one of the best Marvel love stories that has happened in the comics in the past few years. So they might make Scar could be a queer character, I guess. He's not in the comics, but then again, very little of what we saw in his 5 seconds is like it is in the I really, that's my least favorite part of She-Hulk, so I'm not going to go down that tangent. But yeah, clearly I think they're introducing him to put him on the team.
I think we would have gotten Teddy if Secret Invasion resonated, because he's a Skrull, and if Secret Invasion resonated, bringing a Skrull back would be more meaningful. But I really hope they don't go with that Hulk son, because I would never date a man who has that haircut. So I hope that's not the case.
That wasn't even the first draft. Have you seen the oh my God, there's drawings, there's concept art of other haircuts they had for that. That's the one they said, no, that's our guy. Let's give him like he is in the Manchukuo dynasty or something. Anyways, I don't want to get too far into that, but he looks like a Shogun reject.
I gotta say, I feel a little slandered. I would love to see Young Avengers. I just hope they do it right. I don't want it to feel random.
I just wish that Cameron wanted to see Young Avengers. I just wish that Colton wanted to see Young Avengers, Cameron, but he's expressed such disdain for it in this conversation.
Maybe he should get
I
out
could
of his
talk Young
TV.
Avengers all day, and of course there is Wanda and Children's Crusade, all that stuff, but we got a long list here that I want to get through. Shang-Chi 2. This is the #1 movie. I've been like, where in the hell is Shang-Chi 2? Why are you introducing all this other stuff and not giving us a sequel to the only original origin story character that's been unveiled in the multiverse saga in a film? I'm excited about this. I seriously doubt this film would take place on Battleworld, though. We do know that Dustin Daniel Cretton, he left Avengers Secret Wars to focus on this show, which is very exciting. Do either of you have any thoughts on Shang-Chi 2?
Them having not already done a Shang-Chi 2 is one of the biggest issues that I have with the multiverse saga. I don't know how they managed to introduce such an amazing, beloved, new, fresh character right after Endgame that should be, shooting its third film right now.
Right.
And just abandon the character. Such a cool, great new character that could have been one of the new faces of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, of the Avengers. And they have just left him in the dark. I think part of that is probably because I'm sure his story, as we saw with that post-credit scene, was very interconnected with what they had planned with Kang and all that. There's, of course, the China issue with all that. So maybe they're reshuffling plans. But yes, that is one of the glaring issues I have with this phase is they introduce all these great characters and then they're just like, don't acknowledge them ever again. It's weird.
Shang-Chi 2
Ryan,
could be this movie that takes place before Doomsday. It would be in February 13th, 2026. They originally were going to time the first Shang-Chi to be released during Chinese New Year, so that would be really cool. I'm with you, Colton. That's the one I've been holding out for this whole time. And they have this great new charismatic star. He's an ambassador for the MCU. He was at the Kevin Feige's Walk of Fame ceremony, so that's really promising too. Sorry, Cam, I cut you off.
Calling it the Beacon is Doom. I just want to say, calling it now.
Oh yeah, no, the Beacon. What else I was going to say? The Beacon is by far the best tease we've had of anything in the multiverse saga this side of Hercules. I'm really excited for that version of Hercules. Cam, what do you think? Where are we going with Shang-Chi 2 here? Is the Beacon going to matter?
You and I were at lunch maybe like 2 years ago, and we were talking about Shang-Chi, and you said one of the things that the movie forgot, and if I recall correctly, we both really liked the movie. I thought it was great. One of the things that Shang-Chi forgot is that the subtitle for Shang-Chi is The Master of Kung Fu. And the movie ended with two great actors throwing laser bolts at each other and fighting dragons. Yep. And it was a fun movie, but I think that Marvel making a movie with $50 million that can get the box office of a regular Marvel movie, the return on investment on that would be unbelievable. And also, sometimes making things for less money actually makes them better because it forces the creative team to make more ingenious decisions.
100%.
Even Everything Everywhere All at Once.
100%.
I think that was $100 million, and it looked just as good, if not better, as movies that are shot for $250 million. So seeing a low budget Shang-Chi 2 that takes away the 10 rings, and that being said, I really love his sister, so I'd love to see her back. Making a Shang-Chi 2 that is about him fighting people, doing kung fu. I'm not asserting this boldly, but maybe even giving Finn Jones one more shot at Iron Fist sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes.
Got him! Boop! Get him! Oh, I don't know who was saying that. Somebody really didn't like your suggestion about Finn Jones coming back as Iron Fist. I agree with you 100%, especially regarding the lower budget. We made videos at the time about how that dragon and the 10 rings, for me, tanked the end of the movie. I choose to remember all the really cool fighting before it. I don't want to spend too much time on Blade, but I do believe that's what they're doing with Blade. Smaller budget, smaller VFX, because let's face it, the VFX in the original Blade movies don't exactly hold up, and I don't think you need a blood monster when you're just fighting vampires. But there's not much to say on Blade at this point, but I do think that going with like lower budget, like they're doing, grounded, R-rated, is a really cool, functional way for the MCU to recoup some of the losses they've made on really expensive movies like the Marvels. A few other things I just want to kind of touch on just for the people watching, just so we can be completionists and get through this, but I want to kind of fly through some of these so we can get to Spider-Man and X-Men. There is an Okoye series in development. You know, Denai Guerrero was set up. A lot of Wakanda Forever was spent setting her up as for her own series, this Midnight Angel series, where she was going to go off and do other things. She's severed from the position she did before. Really great character, truly tremendous actor. I don't know. That might be one of these series, though, that Bob Iger was like, let's trim this back a little bit. Maybe her story is going to be folded into Black Panther 3. I don't think that would necessarily be a bad thing. Again, quality over quantity for me. Do either of you have any thoughts on that?
I have no interest. And I love Denai Guerrero, by the way, in Walking Dead as Michonne. Oh, my God.
And tremendous playwright as well.
Yeah. Yes. I have no interest in a spinoff, series that just feels random and just being made for the sake of being made because they want to make more and more streaming content. I want to see her headline a Black Panther 3 alongside the new Black Panther. That's what I want to see. I want her story told on the big screen as a Black Panther movie, a Wakanda movie. I think that's the direction to take her. I'd much rather see a movie than just some Disney Plus series.
Yeah, so would I. Unless, not that a Disney Plus series can't be good. The worst thing that could happen to Disney at this point is for Disney Plus series to be synonymous with bad quality. I mean, John Boyega said that, like, they're not going to Disney Plus me, you know what I mean? Scarlett Johansson has this secret project that she's producing. Apparently it doesn't involve Black Widow at all. There's some speculation. It's an A-Force film, which is like the female Avengers, an all-female Avengers team. They're pretty tight-lipped about it. It's one of those things that maybe this was part of her lawsuit a few years ago when they released Black Widow on streaming at the same time as theaters, and she was supposed to get a portion of the gross. It could be that her project she's producing is just a way to give her a payout that's a backdoor from another movie, or it's something she feels very personal about. Cameron, have you heard anything about the secret ScarJo project? And if you and Colin Jost are close, or like what, if you got any inside theories on that?
I would not be surprised if they didn't even know what the project was yet, because ScarJo, I don't want to speak on her behalf, but I'm not entirely convinced she is the type of comic book fan who would be so compelled by a story that she wasn't in that she just felt like she had to tell it.
I can see that.
But yeah, it seems like it was part of her lawsuit, and they released it because Disney wanted to suggest, hey, remember when one of our own stars sued us? Look, we're cool now. Check it out. So
Right.
I have
Which
no
again,
idea what they're doing, nor do I
hold
care.
over from the Chapek era, because there's no way Bob Iger would have even let that story get that far. Like he would have nipped it in the bud, and 'cause this kind of thing happens all the time. Like it happens all the time. You just never hear about it.
Actors make the best directors, and I don't think she has to be this like hardcore comic book fan. I think that she's been in the biz long enough that she can recognize a good story when she sees it. So I would be excited to see her as a director for a film. Yeah.
I want to touch on a couple things here before we get into Spider-Man. And I think you're right. She's brilliant. Whatever she gets involved in, it'll be fantastic. One of them is Nova, which again, I don't think it's a project they'll abandon just because the opening sequence of this show or special presentation or movie writes itself. What happened when Thanos took the Power Stone? That's a sequence we all want to see. I don't think it's a Disney Plus sequence. And there's rumors that this, it's Moon Knight's Sabir Pirzada is taking over this project, developing it. And Moon Knight had some great elements to it, so that's really promising. There are rumors it's going to be a special presentation. But again, I think if you're not doing, Nova's a great character. There's a lot of fun there. He's Marvel's Green Lantern. If you're not doing that opening sequence, you're just missing so much potential there. Wouldn't you guys think?
That's the only reason to do it. If you're going to do it,
he's a great character.
He is a great character, but if you don't do that opening sequence, that is the single biggest missed opportunity ever.
Exactly.
You have to do it. Yeah.
X-Men, I'm not going to touch on very much because I think it's phase 7. I just want to note for everybody that Michael Leslie, who wrote Songbirds and Snakes, everybody in Hollywood pitched an X-Men movie. I made a video. Apparently Kevin didn't see it. So he is working on that film. Again, I think we're going to see the remnants of the Fox X-Men universe in Doomsday and Secret Wars, and then that'll be a goodbye, and then we're going to start fresh in a reboot. We've talked about that on the channel before. We don't have to rehash that now. I do want to talk about Spider-Man. So Spider-Man No Way Home gave us this ending where he's in a cloth suit, no more armor, no more Mr. Stark. He is basically just like plain old Peter Parker from the original comics. Starting from scratch, right? Whole new thing. There are rumors that behind the scenes, though, that Marvel and Sony differed widely on what they wanted this to be. that Sony wanted another crossover with the other Spider-Man. And why wouldn't they? The movie made $1 billion right after the pandemic. It was huge for them. So they want another team up with all their Spider IP. Notice I use IP and not characters because that's how Sony views these characters. Whereas Marvel was pushing for what we got a setup for, this grounded, gritty, possibly involving the Kingpin, Daredevil, Black Cat, Sydney Sweeney, Black Cat. We all want to see that. We got this set up on this one hand, right? That seemed pretty clear, that could even bring Venom into the MCU. And then we've got this other one. And it seems to me, you guys remember how Venom, the little symbiote, was left behind in the MCU at the end of No Way Home? Do you remember how in the Venom 3 trailer, we see agents putting a cup on that? Like, oh no, that wasn't in the MCU. That was in Mexico in the Sonyverse. It seemed like they were setting up one thing to have Peter wear the Venom suit. And now they're going a different way and they're going to put him on Battle World. That's to me what it's looking like. Cameron, which version of this would you rather see? Which one do you think we need to see?
Well, obviously, if Sony thinks something's a good idea, any exec with half a brain would say, okay, Sony thinks this is smart, so let's do whatever the opposite of that is. And a lot of people in Hollywood really don't know how to take yes for an answer. And No Way Home was their yes. They got to do their Spider crossover. It worked, and you can only go down from there. Because to many, many people, it was myself included, it was such a joy to see Andrew and Toby back. We got beautiful moments with their characters that brought closure that we never got in their movies. But that wasn't the best part of No Way Home. The best part of No Way Home was watching Peter Parker become this character who is so tied to these other Marvel characters, become himself. And we got to see Iron Man Jr. become Peter Parker. And, I always was a fan of Tom Holland as Spider-Man. And the first thing we wanted to see about MCU Spider-Man was him jumping right into the action with everybody else. So this smaller personal story that I think all of us want to see with Spider-Man 4, that's not what we wanted right off the bat. What we wanted to see was what we got. Him whipping Captain America's shield out of his hands. We got that. We got to watch him go to outer space, which we had never seen before, and they joke about in No Way Home. Now it's time to see him go back to basics, and No Way Home was the perfect transition into that. It was Spider-Man the Avenger becoming Peter Parker, as he is in so many of the greatest stories, as a young man, not a little kid, coming into his own. And that was where we saw Tom Holland give the first great performance he gave as Spider-Man. He was a beautiful cartoon character in the first couple movies, but when you see him after Aunt May's death, the rain pouring on his face, looking at this unrealistically giant billboard of this InfoWars style J. Jonah Jameson, that was fine acting, and he really did a beautiful job. So we want another movie of that. And Sony just dragging these characters through the mud and throwing them in our face over and over and over again is only going to hurt the longevity of this IP. If you want to bring Andrew back, make Amazing Spider-Man 3. If you want to bring Toby back, make Spider-Man 4. Yeah. Let Tom Holland have his own personal story, and it could be a really beautiful thing. And I think everybody is on the same page. We want to see him on the street. We want to see him fight Kingpin. We want to see folks like Daredevil, but not too much because we still want it to be about Peter. And they have the opportunity to tell the most personal Spider-Man story we've ever seen, because it's about him finding out who he is now that he's kind of lost his connection with everybody else. Is he going to be two Spider-Man? How is he going to keep a hold of who Peter Parker is? And people want to see that. And, the last thing I'll say is Toby and Andrew can come back in Secret Wars, but we already got the novelty of seeing them back together. And I know people want to see Toby with Hugh Jackman because they were the stars of not the first two Marvel movies, because I guess Blade
the first wave.
They were the stars of the first wave. I want to see Toby and Hugh together, but the thing is, they never had a connection because they were never in the same movies. So it's not like we're seeing a reunion. We're just seeing this guy who we saw before with this guy who we saw before. Let Tom take the reins. And the No Way Home was a beautiful handoff, something we never thought we'd get from two Spider-Men to the next. Let's roll with it.
Colton, same. I'll let you have the last word on this. What are your thoughts on it?
You got to do both. You have to do both. I think you do a Spider-Man 4 that is intimate. It's a smaller story. Yeah, have Kingpin, have Daredevil, do that Spider-Man solo story. But then at the same time that you're filming that and you have the extra resources of Sony being involved, I'm talking about production wise, you film Spider-Man 5 at the same time. And Spider-Man 5 takes place in between Doomsday and Secret Wars. I think you do Spider-Man 4, that's before Doomsday, have some kind of tease at the end of that that leads into Doomsday, then have Spider-Man 5 take place on Battle World, have him get the symbiote like he does in the comics on Battle World, have that lead into Secret Wars. They have the resources to do it. I think they have the time to do it. I think you do Spider-Man 4 and Spider-Man 5, both worlds it, you get both. You do your intimate story and you do your multiversal adventure film. I think that's the way to do it.
I think that the problem with bringing these three Spider-Men who have undeniable chemistry and are so fun to see together back again is that No Way Home gave us really beautiful endings for their stories. We got to see Andrew save Peter Parker's love. We got to see Tobey look at young Spider-Man with pride and say, it really is special to be this kind of guy. I think Tom learned everything he needed to learn from these characters. And Andrew and Tobey got a healing experience from seeing young Tom and seeing a young version of themselves triumph. And Tobey got to stop Tom from killing someone. And he got to save the Green Goblin, which Tobey didn't get to do in his world. So Andrew got to save his world's Gwen. Tobey got to prevent Norman Osborn's murder, which he wishes he could have done in the first movies. Tom learned a bunch of valuable lessons from these guys, and I just don't know what more you can say by bringing them together than, oh, check it out, it's three Spider-Mans.
Well, the answer is absolutely nothing. I think you put it so eloquently right there. There's nothing else that we could go do with these guys that would be anything except here Spider-Man, give money. That's essentially what it boils down to.
Well, it wouldn't be about bringing the three Spider-Men together. It'd be about giving. I want to see Tobey and Hugh. I know they never had an actual connection, but they do in the hearts and minds of and nostalgic fans. And giving Andrew the opportunity as well to see them alongside the Avengers. I think that's the extra thing.
That would be a lot of fun. What I'm saying is I don't want to see a Spider-Man movie that takes place on Battleworld. I don't care. If you want to have him get the Venom symbiote the way he does in Secret Wars 8, fine. It makes more sense story-wise for him to get the Venom symbiote to compensate for not having the armor that he's used to, for him to like be tempted and be drawn in by it in that way. If you're going to tell the first, a Venom story has only been told well once, and that is in the game Spider-Man 2. It was told better there than it ever was in the comics, as far as like this temptation that Peter faced and how the symbiote took over and became a different entity that he had to fight against that was a literal monster within himself. That's the Venom story that we need. And I don't see how Battleworld and this stuff and all this other stuff is going to set that up nearly as well as this eloquent setup that Marvel Studios gave us at the end. Cam, you're 100% right. You think Sony would learn to take yes for an answer, and I'm tired of seeing strategy like Morbius being introduced to the theaters for a third time. Guys, I have to call it there, but thank you so much for joining me. You can find Cameron and Colton's social links below. But we want to hear from you guys. What did you think about all of this announcement? Which movies and shows do you think are going to take place on Battleworld? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.